I just did what anyone would do.
No, most people left. But you stayed.
Cowboy fought off outlaws to save 2 Apache girls. Next day, their mother said she'd be his reward. The gunshot echoed across the desert canyon like a thunderclap, but it was the silence that followed that made my blood run cold. 3 more shots, then screaming, a high-pitched, terrified screaming that cut through the New Mexico night like a blade through silk. Most men would have spurred their horses away from such sounds. Most men valued their own skin over whatever nightmare was unfolding in the darkness ahead. But I wasn't most men. The 65-year-old drifter had seen too much death, caused too much of it myself to turn my back on someone else's suffering. Not anymore. My weathered hands tightened on the reins as my old gray mare, Ghost, snorted nervously beneath me. She could smell it too. The metallic scent of blood, carried on the desert wind, mixed with something else, something wild and hungry. The mesa stretched endlessly in all directions, its red sandstone walls glowing silver under the full moon. Sagebrush and prickly pear dotted the landscape like scattered thoughts, while somewhere in the distance, a coyote's lonely cry pierced the air. But this was different. Whatever was happening ahead was no natural desert symphony. If you enjoy the story, hit that subscribe button right away. And if you don't, then just hit the like button anyway to keep more Wild West love stories coming. My boots hit the ground with a soft thud, a sound that felt both final and unavoidable. I unholstered my old Colt revolver, the weight of it familiar and cold in my palm. My life had been a series of choices, most of them wrong, and this one felt like the last chance for me to make it right. Ghost, my mare, was a testament to that life. She was as old as I was, her spirit broken by the unforgiving sun, her coat the color of a faded memory. We were 2 old ghosts haunting the ruins of a life that could have been. A life where a man didn't have to live with the specter of his past. 10 years ago, I was Caleb Thorne, Marshal of Redemption Creek. The name was a joke, a cruel irony in a town where sin was a way of life, and redemption was a concept as foreign as rain. My wife, Sarah, and our little boy, Noah, were the only things that mattered to me. We were on our way to the town to start a new life when a gang of outlaws ambushed us. I was a marshal, a man of justice, but on that day, I was just a man. I tried to fight, but they were too many. They took everything from me. They took Sarah. They took Noah. And they took the man I used to be. The pain was a physical thing, a constant ache in my chest that had driven me from my badge, from my home, from everything I held dear. I had sworn to never get involved again, to let the world burn if it had to. I had ridden away from Redemption Creek with a soul as empty as the desert around me. But the sound of that woman's scream, the terror in her voice, it brought it all back. The image of Sarah, her eyes wide with fear, a terror I was powerless to stop. The thought of Noah, his little hands reaching for me as I fell to the ground, helpless. I had failed them. I had failed my family, and that failure had become my shadow, my constant companion. I moved silently, using the scattered boulders as cover, my pale blue eyes scanning the shadows ahead. The screaming had stopped now, replaced by the low, guttural growls of men who had no place in the world, animals in human skin. I saw them then, a handful of men, their faces hidden by the moonlight. They were circling a small, overturned wagon. A wagon that must have belonged to the woman whose screams I had heard. My heart hammered against my ribs, a painful reminder of a life I had lost. I could feel the old rage, the familiar fire that had consumed me after the ambush. But this time, it was different. This wasn't about revenge. This was about doing the right thing, something I had forgotten how to do. This was about honoring the memory of my family, about proving to myself that the man I used to be wasn't completely lost. I crept forward, my rifle in my hands. The sight of the woman on the ground, her body contorted in a way that spoke of pain and fear, solidified my resolve. Her face was turned away from me, but I could see the blood staining her dress, a dark, horrifying pool on the dusty ground. She was reaching out, her hand outstretched, as if begging for a help that would never come. Then I saw them. Two small figures, a boy and a girl, huddled behind a boulder, their eyes wide with terror. They were staring at the outlaws, their faces etched with a fear that I knew all too well. I saw my son in the boys' terrified eyes, and my wife in the way the woman on the ground was trying to protect her children, even in her last moments. The outlaws laughed, their cruel voices echoing through the canyon. They were arguing about something, their voices filled with a disgusting glee. "The bitch is out," one of them said. "Let's take the kids and run. We can sell them in Santa Fe for a pretty penny." My jaw clenched, a cold fury rising within me. I had seen this before. The same kind of cruelty, the same kind of soulless greed. I raised my rifle, my hands steady. The shot would have to be perfect. One mistake, and those children would be sold into a life of misery. My first shot rang out, a sharp, clean sound that was quickly followed by a yelp of pain. The outlaw at the front of the group fell to the ground, a hole in his head. The others scattered, their laughter turning into panicked shouts. "Where'd that shot come from?" one of them yelled. "Doesn't matter," another one snarled. "Let's grab the kids and go." But they didn't get the chance. I fired again, a quick, precise shot that hit another outlaw in the leg, sending him sprawling. His partner, a tall, lanky man, turned to run, but I was faster. My third shot found its mark, and he too fell to the ground. The last one, a massive brute with a beard, turned his eyes toward me. He looked at me with a mix of fury and fear, but his eyes were filled with an unholy malice. It was then that I recognized him. It was McTaggart, the man who had led the ambush that had taken everything from me. He lunged at me, his knife in his hand. I sidestepped his attack, and he went flying past me. I didn't shoot him. I couldn't. This wasn't about revenge. This was about justice. I knocked the knife from his hand, and he stared at me, his eyes wide with a strange mix of recognition and disbelief. "Thorne," he whispered, "you're supposed to be dead." "I am," I said. "But so are you." He looked at the two kids, and a cruel smile spread across his face. "I'll tell you what," he said. "I'll make you a deal. I'll let the kids go if you let me go." I shook my head. "No deal," I said. "You're going to face justice, one way or another." McTaggart charged me, a guttural roar escaping his lips. I dodged his attack, and with a swift kick, I sent him tumbling into a ravine. He landed with a sickening crunch, and the sound was the only thing that broke the silence. He was a bad man, a monster, but he was also the man who had taken my family from me, and now he was gone. I turned back to the woman. She was still on the ground, her hands still outstretched, but her eyes were open, and she was looking at me. She was an Apache woman, and her eyes were filled with a mixture of pain and gratitude. She was clutching a piece of metal in her hand, and she held it out to me. "My nieces," she whispered. Her voice was weak, barely a whisper. "Please, save them." I took the piece of metal from her hand. It was a locket, a heart-shaped locket with a picture of two little girls inside. The two little girls I had just saved. I looked at the woman, her face twisted in pain, her eyes pleading. I knelt down beside her, and I took her hand. "I promise," I said. "I promise I'll save them. I promise I'll get them home to their mother." She smiled, a weak, fleeting smile that was filled with a peace that I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Her eyes closed, and her hand went limp in mine. She was gone, but her memory, her plea, and her trust would be etched into my soul for the rest of my life. I had failed to save my family, but I had a second chance, and I would not fail again. 4. Dựa vào truyện mẫu và ý chính số 2 của dàn ý truyện mới, viết đoạn 2 với 1.300 chữ bằng tiếng Anh Mỹ, Quy đoán chen vào. If you like Wild West love stories or Wild West stories, drop a bunch of 1 second and your place in the comments for the Wild West Love channel. Tell me where you're listening from, so I don't feel so alone out here. Viết với văn phong của truyện mẫu, cảm xúc bi lụy. I stood there for a long moment. The cool night air a stark contrast to the heat of the fight that had just ended. The bodies of the outlaws lay scattered like discarded dolls, their faces contorted in a final grimace of surprise. I had done what I had to do, what a man of justice should do, but as I looked at the body of McTaggart, the man who had taken everything from me, I felt no sense of victory, only a cold, empty void. Vengeance was a dish best served cold, but it left a bitter taste in my mouth, a taste of a life I could never get back. I turned my attention to the two little girls huddled behind the boulder. Their eyes were still wide with terror, but there was also a glimmer of curiosity in them. They had watched me fight, watched me kill the men who would have taken them. They had seen what a man could be when pushed to the edge. I knelt down, my movements slow and deliberate, to not frighten them. "It's all right," I said, my voice a low rumble. "They're gone now. You're safe." The older one, a girl of perhaps 10, slowly emerged from behind the rock. She had a piece of sharpened wood in her hand, a pathetic weapon against grown men, but a symbol of her courage. Her eyes, dark and intelligent, were fixed on me, searching for a hidden motive, a cruel intent. "Who are you?" she asked in a halting, accented English. "My name is Caleb Thorne," I said, "and I'm going to take you to your mother." The girl's expression hardened. "We are not going with you. You are a white man. You are dangerous." Her words were a punch to the gut. I had spent my life protecting people from men like McTaggart, but to her, I was just another white man, another threat in a world filled with them. The irony was not lost on me. I had lost my family because of a white man, and now I was being judged by the same cruel standards. But her fear was justified. These people had seen nothing but betrayal from my kind. "I know what you think," I said, "and you have every right to be scared. But I'm not them. I'm a man of my word. I promised your aunt I would get you home, and I will." Her sister, a younger girl, probably 8 years old, had come out from behind the boulder and was now clinging to her older sister's leg. She was crying silently, tears streaming down her dusty cheeks. Her eyes, wide and terrified, were fixed on me, a silent plea for me to go away. I pulled out the locket the aunt had given me. "She gave me this," I said, showing it to the older girl. "She told me to find her nieces. She said to save them. Your aunt was a brave woman, and she wanted you to be safe." The girl's eyes softened for a moment as she looked at the locket. Her aunt's face was inside, a face I had only seen for a fleeting moment, but a face that was now burned into my memory. She took the locket and clutched it to her chest, as if it were a last connection to a world that was now gone. "Ayanna," she said, touching her chest. "My name is Ayanna." "This is Helona," she said, gesturing to her sister. "Our mother, she is a shaman. She island. Hurt." I nodded. "I know," I said, "and we're going to get you back to her. But we have to go now. There may be others." Ayanna shook her head. "We can find our way. We don't need you." I looked at the two little girls, alone in the vast, unforgiving desert, with a few meager supplies. They were strong, but they were still children. The desert was a place that showed no mercy, and I knew what they would face out there. Outlaws, wolves, and the harsh elements. I couldn't leave them. My promise to their aunt, the memory of my own family, would not allow it. "I'm not asking you to trust me," I said. "I'm asking you to let me help you. Just for now. We can go our separate ways once you're safe." Ayanna looked at me for a long moment, a flicker of something in her eyes. It wasn't trust, not yet. It was curiosity. She looked at her sister, then back at me. "Okay," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "but you will not touch us. You will not come near us. You will guide us." It was a small victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. I had won their temporary trust, a fragile, tenuous thing. I packed up their meager supplies and helped them onto my old mare, Ghost. The horse whinnied in protest, but I knew she would carry them. Ghost was a creature of the wild, but she had a heart of gold, a heart that had been broken, just like mine. I knew she would protect the children. We rode through the night, the vast, empty landscape stretching out before us. I kept my distance from the girls, a silent promise I intended to keep. They rode in silence, huddled together, their faces lit by the pale moonlight. I felt a strange sense of responsibility, a paternal instinct I hadn't felt in a long, long time. They were not my children, but they were a precious cargo, a responsibility I had to see through. As the sun began to rise, a crimson ball of fire painting the sky, I saw the first sign of our pursuers. A cloud of dust in the distance, a telltale sign of riders. They were afoot, but they were not going to give up. McTaggart's gang, the last remnants of a past that haunted me, was still after us. They were hunting us, and they were relentless. I knew this land like the back of my hand. I had patrolled these canyons, these mesas, these dry washes for years as a marshal. I knew every hidden path, every secluded grotto, every secret that the desert held. I knew where to find water, where to find shelter, and where to find a place to hide. But I also knew that these outlaws were as cunning as coyotes. They were not going to give up easily. The locket felt heavy against my chest, a constant reminder of my promise to their aunt. We rode hard all morning, avoiding the main trails, taking the paths less traveled. I used my knowledge of the land to our advantage, doubling back, creating false trails, doing everything I could to shake our pursuers. But they were good. I had to give them that. They were persistent, they were relentless, and they were coming. By midday, the heat was unbearable. The sun beat down on us, a merciless hammer of fire. I could see the girls wilting under its heat, their faces pale and drawn. We needed a place to rest, a place to hide. I spotted a narrow canyon, a fissure in the rock that I knew led to a small, hidden cave. "We'll rest there," I said, pointing to the canyon. "We can't travel in this heat." Ayanna nodded, her face grim. She was a strong girl, a survivor, but even she was no match for the desert's fury. We rode into the canyon, the cool, dark rock, a welcome relief from the blinding sun. The cave was small, but it was enough. I helped the girls down from the horse, and they huddled together, their small bodies trembling with exhaustion. I had managed to salvage some food and water from their wagon, and I gave it to them. They ate in silence, their eyes still on me, still cautious, but no longer filled with fear. As I sat there, cleaning my rifle, I watched them. They were so small, so fragile, two lost birds in a world of predators. They had been through so much, and yet they were still fighting. It was a strength I had long lost, a strength I had forgotten I had. I looked at the locket on my chest, a strange, beautiful thing, a gift from a dying woman to a man who had long ago given up on life. I knew then that I wasn't just a marshal anymore. I wasn't just a drifter. I was a man with a purpose, a man with a promise to keep. The memory of my family, of Sarah and Noah, came to me then, a sharp, painful ache. But this time, it was different. It wasn't just a memory of loss and despair. It was a memory of love, of the things I had fought for, the things I had lost. And now, I had a new reason to fight, a new reason to live. I looked at the two little girls, their small, fragile bodies finally at rest. They were my redemption. They were my second chance. If you like Wild West love stories or Wild West stories, drop a bunch of 1 second and your place in the comments for the Wild West Love channel. Tell me where you're listening from, so I don't feel so alone out here. The sun was a searing eye in the sky, a pitiless witness to the dramas of the desert. I had sat at the mouth of the cave for what felt like an eternity, watching the heat haze shimmer on the canyon walls, my thoughts a jumble of the past and the present. The girls, Ayanna and Helona, were still asleep, their small bodies a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. They had been through so much, and yet they were still fighting, still surviving. They were my redemption, my second chance. I had lost my family, but I had a new one. A family given to me by a dying woman who had entrusted me with the most precious things in her life. Just as the sun began its slow descent, painting the canyon walls in a palette of gold and crimson, a man appeared on the horizon. He was a solitary figure, riding hard, a cloud of dust billowing behind him. My hand went to my revolver, a familiar instinct, but something in his posture, the way he rode, sent a chill down my spine. It was a familiarity I had long buried, a specter from my past I had hoped to never see again. It was McTaggart. He dismounted, his face a mask of hate and triumph. "Thorn," he said, his voice a low growl. "I knew I'd find you. I knew you'd come back." "I never left," I said, my voice as cold as the rock beneath me. "I was just waiting." He laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. Waiting for what? For a chance to play hero? You're too old for this, Thorn. You should have stayed dead. I'm old enough to remember, I said. I remember your face, McTaggart. I remember what you did to my family. I remember the look in my wife's eyes when she begged you to spare our son. His face hardened. She should have kept her mouth shut. It was a business deal, Thorn. Nothing personal. Nothing personal? I said, my voice rising. You call it nothing personal when you take a man's family? You call it nothing personal when you take a man's life? You are a monster, McTaggart, and you're going to pay for what you did. He pulled out his revolver, a nasty-looking thing with a tarnished barrel. Go ahead, he said, his eyes glinting with a dangerous light. Draw. Let's see if the old marshal still has it in him. I looked at the two girls sleeping in the cave. They were my responsibility. I couldn't risk a gunfight. I had to protect them, but I also had to face this man. I had to face my past, my failure, my guilt. I'm not going to draw, I said. You're going to listen to me, McTaggart. You're going to listen to the story of a man who had everything and lost it all to a soulless monster like you. I told him the story of that night, the night he took Sarah and Noah from me. I told him about the look in my wife's eyes, the pleading look, a look that had haunted me for years. I told him about the sound of my son's screams, the screams of a child who was about to be taken from his father. I told him about the emptiness, the despair, the pain that had become my life. I told him everything. And as I spoke, I could see a change in his eyes. The triumph, the hate, the malice was slowly replaced by a look of something else. It was a look I had never seen on his face before. It was a look of understanding, a look of humanity. He lowered his gun, his hand trembling. I didn't know, he said, his voice a low whisper. I didn't know about the kid. We needed the money. It's never just about the money, I said. It's about the lives you destroy. It's about the pain you inflict. It's about the souls you leave behind. He looked at me, a strange look of regret and sorrow in his eyes. I'm sorry, Thorn. I truly am. It was a strange moment, a moment of truth, a moment of reckoning. The man who had destroyed my life was now standing in front of me, a broken man, a man who had finally seen the error of his ways. I had my chance for revenge, but what would it accomplish? It wouldn't bring my family back. It wouldn't heal my broken heart. It would just make me another soulless monster, another man lost to the violence of the Wild West. I chose a different path, a path of justice, a path of redemption. Get out of here, McTaggart, I said, and don't ever come back. If I see you again, I won't hesitate. He nodded, a silent acknowledgement of my words. He mounted his horse and rode away, a single solitary figure disappearing into the shimmering heat. He was a monster, but he was also a human being, and I had given him a chance to be better. I had given him a chance to find his own redemption. I had chosen to be a man of justice, a man of honor, a man of compassion. I turned my attention back to the girls. They were still asleep, their faces serene. They didn't know what had just happened. They didn't know that the man who had destroyed my life was just here, and that I had let him go. I had let him go because I had to. I had to be a man worthy of their trust. I had to be a man worthy of their love. I had to be a father. I sat there for a long time, watching them sleep, and I finally felt it. A sense of peace, a sense of healing. My past was still there, a shadow I would always carry, but it no longer defined me. I was a marshal, a drifter, a man who had lost everything, but I was also a man who had found something precious, something worth fighting for, something that was finally healing my broken heart. Hey there, friend, take a moment and get yourself a full glass of water. It's easy to forget, but staying hydrated is crucial for your health. Also, if you've been sitting for a while, do a quick lap around the room and give your eyes a break from the screen. Your body will thank you. The sun was a searing eye in the sky, a pitiless witness to the dramas of the desert. I had sat at the mouth of the cave for what felt like an eternity, watching the heat haze shimmer on the horizon, my thoughts a jumble of the past and the present. My encounter with McTaggart was still fresh in my mind, a wound that was still healing, but was now no longer bleeding. I had stared into the face of my personal demon and had not flinched. I had not sought vengeance, but justice, and in that I had found a strange, unfamiliar sense of peace. The girls, Ayana and Helona, were still asleep, their small bodies a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. They had been through so much, and yet they were still fighting, still surviving. They were my redemption, my second chance. I had lost my family, but I had a new one, a family given to me by a dying woman who had entrusted me with the most precious things in her life. Just as the sun began its slow descent, painting the canyon walls in a palette of gold and crimson, a woman appeared on the horizon. She was a solitary figure, her movements graceful and fluid. She was an Apache woman, and she was heading straight for us. My hand went to my revolver, a familiar instinct, but something in her posture, something in the way she carried herself, told me she was not a threat. She was a mother, and she was coming home. I watched as she made her way through the treacherous terrain, her bare feet silent on the rocky ground. She was a shaman, a woman of power, and she was a mother. I had no doubt about that. She stopped a few feet from the cave, her dark eyes fixed on me. They were a beautiful, haunting shade of brown, and they held a depth of wisdom and pain that spoke of a lifetime of suffering. She looked at me, then at the girls, and a look of relief, so profound it was almost tangible, washed over her face. She knelt down, her hands outstretched, and spoke to me in a language I didn't understand, but her message was clear. "You have saved my daughters," she said in a halting, accented English. "You have done what no one else would." "I made a promise," I said, my voice a low rumble. "Their aunt gave me this locket. She asked me to save them." I showed her the locket, and her eyes welled up with tears. "My name is Nish," she said. "I am their mother. I am a shaman. I saw you in my dreams. I saw the man who would save my daughters. I saw the man who would heal my broken heart." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a gratitude that was both humbling and overwhelming. I have lost so much," she said, her voice a whisper. "My husband, he was killed by the blue coats. I have no family left, no one to protect my daughters." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a desperate plea. I do not want to lose them. I do not want them to suffer. Please, please do not leave them." I looked at the girls. They were awake now, and they were watching their mother, their eyes filled with a mixture of relief and fear. They had lost their father, their aunt, and now they were about to lose their mother. It was a cruel fate, a fate I knew all too well. I had lost my family. I had lost everything. And now I had a chance to save a family, a chance to be a part of a family, a chance to heal. "I won't leave them," I said. "I promise." Ayana, the older girl, came to her mother. She knelt down and put her arms around her. "Mama," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of love and pain. We found him. We found the man you spoke of." Nish smiled, a weak but genuine smile. "I know, my daughter," she said. "I know. He is a good man. He is a man of honor. He is a man of justice. He is a man of love." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a knowing that was both unnerving and comforting. I have seen your past, the woman, your wife. She is proud of you. She is at peace." Her words hit me like a physical blow. The pain, the guilt, the despair that had been my constant companions for 10 long years began to ebb away. The specter of my wife and son, the faces that had haunted me, began to fade. They were at peace, and in their peace, I had found my own. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice a choked whisper. "I'm sorry I couldn't save them." "You did," she said. "You saved them. In your heart. You saved them. In your soul. And now you have a new family. My daughters, and me." She fainted then, her body going limp in Ayana's arms. She had used the last of her strength to find me, to bring me to her daughters. She had given me a gift that was more precious than any treasure, more valuable than any reward. She had given me a family, And in that gift, I had found my redemption. I had found a reason to live. I had found a reason to be a man of honor again. I gently lifted her and carried her into the cave, a man with a purpose, a man with a family, a man who had finally found his way back home. If you're watching on television, don't hesitate, grab your phone and hit subscribe to my channel so you'll never miss out on our amazing characters. The desert night was a blanket of stars, a silent testament to the vastness of the world. Nish, the shaman, lay on a bed of blankets inside the cave, her breathing shallow and labored. Her daughters, Ayana and Helona, were huddled by her side, their small hands clutching hers. I sat at the mouth of the cave, my rifle across my knees, and watched the silent drama unfold. The outlaws were gone, a distant memory in the grand scheme of things. McTaggart was gone, a ghost of a man I had finally laid to rest, and I was here, a man who had finally found his purpose. In the morning, when the sun painted the sky with its golden hues, Nish's fever had broken. Her breathing was steady, her color was returning. The gash on her arm was still there, but it was no longer bleeding. The shaman had used her powers to heal herself, to heal her body, to heal her soul. She had made a promise to her daughters, a promise that she would not leave them, and she had kept it. She had fought her way back from the brink of death, a true warrior. Her eyes, those beautiful, haunting eyes, opened, and they were filled with a light that I hadn't seen before. It was a light of life, a light of hope. "You stayed," she said, her voice still weak, but a hint of a smile on her lips. "You did not leave. You are a good man, Caleb Thorne." "He made a promise," I said, "and I keep my promises." She reached out her hand, and I took it. Her touch was warm, comforting. It was the touch of a woman who had fought her way back from the edge of oblivion, a woman who had given me a new life. "We will go now," she said. "We will find my village. They will be worried. They will be grateful." We left the cave, a small but determined group. We walked in silence, a silent understanding passing between us. We were a family now, a family that had been brought together by fate, a family that had been forged in the crucible of loss and despair. As we walked, Nish told me about her village, a hidden place in the mountains, a place that had been kept secret from the outside world. She told me about the people, about her culture, about her traditions. She told me about the spirits, about the gods, about the land. And as she spoke, I felt a sense of peace, a sense of belonging that I hadn't felt in a long, long time. If you've made it this far, I know you're a true fan of WWL. From the bottom of my heart, I wish your day is filled with health and happiness, and may a little stroke of luck find you in the next 15 minutes. Don't forget to share it with me in the comments. We traveled for days, walking through the unforgiving landscape, our spirits high. I learned to read the land, to understand the signs, to find water where there was none. I learned to speak their language, to understand their customs. I became a part of their world, a world that had been hidden from me, a world that was now my home. We finally reached the village, a beautiful, hidden place, nestled in the heart of the mountains. It was a place of peace, a place of love, a place of family. The people of the village welcomed us with open arms. They welcomed Nish back. They welcomed her daughters, and they welcomed me, a white man who had saved their shaman and her children. They were a family now, a family that had been brought together by fate, a family that had been forged in the crucible of loss and despair. Caleb Thorne had found his way back home. The old marshal, the drifter, the man who had lost everything, had found a new life, a new purpose, a new family. He had found love. He had found redemption. He had found a reason to live. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, a bond grew between Nish and me. It was a bond of respect, of gratitude, of love. We had both been through so much. We had both lost so much. But we had also found something precious in each other. We had found a cowboy love story in the heart of the Wild West, a story of two broken souls who had found healing and happiness in each other's arms. It was a Wild West love story that was not about violence, or vengeance, or power. It was about love, about honor, about family. One day, Nish came to me. She was holding a bundle in her hands. She unwrapped it, and I saw a beautiful, hand-carved saddle. "This is for you," she said. "From me, from my people, from your family. We are one now. You are one of us. We are one family." I looked at her, then at the two girls who were now calling me Papa, and I finally understood. I had a purpose. I had a family. I had a home. I put the saddle on my old mare, Ghost, and I rode out into the desert. The sun was shining, the sky was a perfect blue, and the air was filled with the scent of sagebrush and freedom. I was a man who had been running his whole life, but now I was running toward something. I was running toward a new life, a new future. I was running toward my family. The world was wide and open, and I was finally free. Today's story is about pains that seemed to have no way out until a small ray of light changed everything. Do you believe that, even in the darkest times, there's always a miracle waiting at the end of the road? And if deep down you still believe that God is watching over you, quietly arranging everything, then right now, leave a comment AMEN below this video. Because who knows, at the very moment you write it, a blessing may quietly find its way into your life.
What will you do now? Your home is gone. Your family. I'll rebuild.
I'll make sure those men pay for what they did.
She was chained to a juniper tree by ruthless bounty hunters until a mountain man risked everything to save her. When Caleb Stone found the Apache woman, Nahal, half dead and fighting a losing battle against a band of black-hearted bounty hunters in the unforgiving Red Rock Desert, her spirit nearly broken, her tribe's history and future resting on a fragile piece of sacred hide, but her eyes still burning with the defiance of a wolf, he had no idea that saving her life, a life connected to a past he'd tried so hard to bury, would cost him everything he'd built in 20 years of isolated living, and that she would prove to be the strongest person he'd ever met. The morning mist clung to the canyons of the Arizona Badlands like the ghosts of 1,000 broken treaties, thick and cold, swallowing the twisted juniper trees whole until only their gnarled tops pierced through like the masts of sunken ships. The air tasted of sand and dry sage, with an undertone of something else, something that made the hair on the back of Caleb's neck stand up like a wolf catching scent of a rattlesnake. If you enjoy the story, hit that subscribe button right away. And if you don't, then just hit the like button anyway to keep more Wild West love stories coming. Caleb, a lone mountain man, had been tracking a cougar for 3 days now, following its trail through terrain that would challenge a mountain goat. This wasn't a casual hunt. He needed the hide to trade for supplies come winter. He'd lived for 2 decades in these desolate parts, his buckskin clothes blending with the shadows, his rifle held ready but not raised. He'd learned long ago that hasty movements meant quick deaths. His past, a tumultuous history as a scout for the 10th Cavalry, the Buffalo Soldiers, had taught him the harsh realities of the frontier. He'd seen men, good and bad, brought down by a single misstep. He'd first heard whispers of the bounty hunters from a lone prospector he'd found half-crazed with thirst near the Superstition Mountains. The old man, rambling and half-mad, had babbled about a group of cutthroats led by a man with a scarred face, men who weren't after gold or cattle, but something more elusive and dangerous, the remnants of a proud, broken people. These weren't men who followed the law. They were outcasts from society, exiled for crimes too dark to speak of, preying on those who had even less than they did. The prospector had lived just long enough to gasp out a story that chilled Caleb's blood. The bounty hunters were after a legendary relic, a map that held the secrets of the Apache, secrets that could spark a new war. The prospector had known the Apache people by reputation, fierce, proud, and unwilling to be tamed. The thought that these rogue men would stoop to preying on them, especially a woman, made Caleb's gut twist with a feeling he'd long tried to forget: the need for justice. The sound of gunfire appeared through the haze like a fever dream made real, a collection of ragged shots that echoed off the canyon walls, followed by human cries of struggle. It was old, built by a silent prayer decades ago, and abandoned when the hope played out. The sun-bleached rock was gray with age, many crumbling at the base, but they still stood tall enough to conceal a desperate struggle. Caleb crept closer, using the morning fog as cover. The scene was eerily quiet now, the struggle apparently over. Either the bounty hunters had moved on, or they were sleeping off a night of violence. Caleb's gut told him it was the former, but his eyes searched every shadow. That's when he heard it, a sound so faint it might have been the wind through the pines. But Caleb's ears had been trained by